Chapter 13. Games Not Played. One afternoon, I returned home from school extremely excited. Mom, I got something to show you, I yelled. Can I, Mummy? Can I? How about you tell me what it is you want? I rummaged in my school bag, pushing aside books and pencils and half-squished bananas I hadn't gotten around to eating, and pulled out a sheet of paper. It was a permission slip for parents to sign allowing their boys to play in the school football competition. Can I play? Stop, Mom said. I'm trying to read this properly. She read it once, then turned it over, but there was nothing on the back. She read it again, taking it slow, then a third time. Well, I'd like to have a think about it and talk to Dad, she asked. Is that okay? Everyone else in the family was involved in sports in one way or another. Even Mom, who didn't really play anything much, had started managing the tennis team Catherine played in. The sport I wanted to play was rugby league. Even for young kids, it was a tough contact sport. You ran at 13 kids standing in front of you trying to block your way and either somehow managed to break through, or a bunch of them would fall on you when you didn't. It was a mess of arms and legs going all over the place. One way or another, you come into a violent contact with some other kid. Mom and Dad were under instructions from my doctors to avoid knocks to my head. Surgeons didn't want a forearm or a foot undergoing all the good work. Neither did my parents. Just as bad was the chance another player could cop a whack from one of my artificial legs. Both were much harder than a real leg and could cause some serious harm. There was no way Mom and Dad could let me play. Mom went to the school to see Mr. French, who was in charge of football. She explained to him the reasons I couldn't play and asked if there was some way I could be involved on the sidelines. They came up with a plan for me to be a ball boy on the side of the field, kicking the ball back in when it came out of bounds, taking sand onto the field when someone was going to attempt a goal. Do you mind if you only play on the sidelines, Robert? Mom asked when she arrived home. I don't mind what I do or where I am, as long as I'm playing and as long as I'm there. She and Dad both made a show of signing the permission slip, but I'm not really sure it ever made its way to school. We won that first game. I even got to go onto the field a few times. It felt good, but deep down, I knew I wasn't part of the team. A year later, I came home from school one day and called to Mom from the bedroom while I was getting changed, asking her if I could play Saturday morning football. No reply. I guess she hadn't heard me. Later, I went into my school bag to retrieve the slip of paper with all the information on it. I put it on the table in front of her. Give me a straight answer. Yes or no, I said. Would you be very disappointed if I said no? Mom asked. I started to cry. Once again, Mom explained that football was a tough contact sport. I was likely to be hurt with an elbow or foot hit me in the face, and other players were likely to be hurt if they copped a clump of metal from one of my legs against their head. I just kept crying. We watched football every Sunday on the television. Sometimes I even got to go with Dad and watch games at the football ground. The football players were some of my biggest heroes. Maybe you could play tennis, Mom suggested. I don't want to play tennis, I shouted at her. Mom almost lost her temper then, but she took a long breath and closed her eyes for a moment before responding. I'll talk to Dad about it when he gets home from work. I stormed off sulking. Next morning, I grabbed the sheet of paper and excitedly plopped it in front of Dad at the breakfast table. Can I play, Dad? No, Robert, you can't play, Dad said. I started to cry again. Why not? It's too dangerous, Mom said. If you played a sport like that, you'll just end up getting hurt yourself or someone else. I crossed my arms, like I'd seen people do on the television when they were cranky but determined. Dad tried to cheer me up. These kids playing rugby kick each other in the shins and they put their fingers up each other's noses when no one's looking, he said. I didn't laugh. Are you sure you don't want to play tennis? Mom asked. Yes. Well, go have a bath and get ready for school then, she said. I'm not going to school, I said. Mom shrugged. Suit yourself. Dad glowered at me and pointed towards the bathroom, and I went. When I came home from school, Mom again talked to me about tennis. I still wasn't very keen, but after a while, Mom sent me into the bedroom to retrieve a parcel, all wrapped up, that she'd left on the bed. It's a tennis racket. It was just like the one Catherine had. I was excited to have my own tennis racket at first, but I didn't really pursue the sport or make most of the training Mom and Dad offered. I wanted to be part of a team, win, lose, or draw, but mostly win. We'd go around in circles every few months. I'd try it on again with rugby league or some other fun kind of sport like cricket, for example. When rugby league took a backseat in the summer, cricket became the sport of the choice in the house. Cricket would involve having a heavy ball aimed at your body at significant speed. It was a definite no. I loved swimming too, but it wasn't really a sport and I wasn't fast enough to be competitive. Running was the same as swimming, with the added benefit that I fell over all the time. One by one, all the sports were eliminated. In primary school, the closest I got to any organized competition was Friday afternoon sports. Most of the other kids would go off to play football or cricket against nearby schools, and there'd be a bunch of us left behind: the injured, the uncommitted, the uncoordinated, the ones who couldn't catch, the crippled. I would have happily spent my time in the library. Alas, the gaggle of uncoordinated misfits was rounded up each week and made to play some sort of sport against each other. We'd get into sports gear and head down one of the ovals not being used for real sports. We'd be told what sport we were going to play for the afternoon. Often it was softball, but sometimes it was made up sport designed to at least keep us active for the last hour and a bit of the school week. The teachers would choose two captains. The captains would then look at the rest of us over, using their years of sporting experience, training, coaching, and performing at the highest level of athletic competition. And slowly, they'd put us poor suckers out of our misery. It would start like this. Whichever captain had first pick would select the super competitive skinny kid who didn't play organized sports because his parents were worried he'd break something. It was rare, but not unknown, to have some kind of actual athletic talent with us there on those Friday afternoons. Then the captains would make their way through the kids who had some skills and weren't as well rounded. The kid who could catch but couldn't bat, the kid who could bat but couldn't run. The first few times, I had waited with excitement for my name to be called out. I couldn't run fast, but the teacher always allowed someone else to run for me. If we were playing something like softball, I figured my chances of getting picked were as good as those of anybody else. My hopes were soon dashed, though. It became very obvious very quickly that even on the team of nobodies with no sporting talent and often less enthusiasm, no one was keen to pick me. The captains would keep going until there was only 3 or 4 students left. This is where things would get really interesting. The 2 captains would look over and see it was a choice between the cripple kid, the kid who couldn't catch a ball if it dropped gently into their cupped hands from a 5 centimeters above, the kid who had a cast taken off of their broken ankle only last week, and the kid who couldn't get the rules of any game, no matter how often you tried to explain them. The captains would be up to their second last choice. They look us over, look at each other, sometimes look at the teacher, and invariably their choices would be Robert. I'd hear my name called out and limp over to my teammates, occasionally issuing a high five and talking about how we were going to crush our opponents. But in my heart, I know there was no honor in being chosen second last. Every now and then, I'd get up my hopes thinking maybe I'd be recognized for my brilliant tactical or motivational skills and would be chosen first for a change. Other times, I would have been happier to be picked last. It would have been honest at least, but no. Second last had become the new last. When you're a young boy who loves sports, there's hardly anything worse than being picked second last for a sport team. knowing the captain probably would have picked you last, but didn't because he either felt sorry for you or was worried he'd get a disapproving look from the teacher. It seemed like there was no sport for me to play. People sometimes assumed I had been playing sports when I was injured, which seemed unfair, even cruel, when I wanted to play so badly and wasn't able to. When I was 12, I once got in a lift by myself. Two middle-aged ladies got in after me. One of them looked me up and down and stared at my face long enough to make me look away. Terrible how they let these kids so young play football these days, she said to her friend. Look at the damage it does. The other woman turned and stared at me too. Yes, yes, it is, she said. Some of the best talks I had ever had started with someone asking, this might seem rude, but can I ask about your face, nose, scars, bumps? Wherever those conversations ended up, they started as honest exchanges. Acknowledging someone's differences can be about saying you're not scared to talk to someone about the things that make them them. Those few moments in the lift were not one of those times I stayed silent until we reached the ground. I should have cringed or felt embarrassed or angry at those women, but at the time I just wanted to laugh. Lady, if only you knew how much I wished I wasn't this ugly because I was allowed to play football.